with Group 3A. Today we are going to present a topic called How to Build a Better Public Sphere. Here's the content of our presentation. Mainly, we will focus on the following 6 questions. The current form of the public sphere on the Internet and rules and regulations. And are the current form inclusive? Are they informative? And also, do the current forms encourage rational debates? And should there be rules in the public sphere? Here comes the first question. The current form of the public sphere on the Internet. As a person who lives in the 21st century, I believe you are not unfamiliar with the Internet. So what's the current form of the public sphere on the Internet? Of course, it is social media. And here are some examples of the social media, like Facebook or Twitter and WeChat, something you must be familiar with. And next, I'll list out some statistics to support my ideas. Facebook, as you may concern, has more than 100 million registered users, and in America, about 84% of adolescents have a Facebook account, and over 60 of 13 to 17-year-olds have at least one profile on social media, many of them spending more than 2 hours a day on social networking sites. So what about other forms of public sphere? Before the social media exists, traditional means are like radio, television, and newspapers. But they are more like a one-way communication instead of a two-way communication like the public sphere. That means you basically accept and read news without giving out a timely feedback. So why not make a comparison between the current and the past forms? As for the social media, it is an example of a two-way communication which allows interaction between journalists and audiences. And also, it can provide timely and instant news to the audiences. Plus, it is very easy and convenient. Also, it can give birth to the citizen journalism. So what is citizen journalism? Let me elaborate something on it. Citizen journalism is based upon public citizens playing an active role in the process of collecting, reporting, analyzing, and disseminating news and information. With the assistance of mobile devices and social media, everyone can become a journalist without even knowing it. So as for the traditional forms, there are some limitations which I have mentioned before, but it will somehow guarantee the quality of information because it takes more time for the journalists to produce the news. They will pay more attention to the credibility of the news. And also there are some limitations of social media, like it will creating huge digital gap around the world, especially between the developed and developing country. And it is also often crowded and polarized. So the conclusion is everything is a double-edged sword, and so as the social media.
And it comes to the second part of today, the rules and regulations for the discussions and debates. And actually our group thinks that there are some rules and regulations nowadays, but they are not harsh, effective, and strict enough. And we think that these rules are some rules that are supposed to be complied with universally. For example, for Facebook, users should be respectful and make no offense to others. If they violate these basic rules, their posts or comments will be deleted or their accounts will be even banned. And here are the examples of the online discussion rules from the UK Parliament. And actually, for the rules and regulations, our group proposed some rules and regulations for the discussion and debates on the Internet, and we can divide in 2 parts, namely legal and moral side. And for the legal side, we think that there are no obvious rules recently, and when someone violates the law, the police is able to arrest him or her by tracing back his IP address. But also there is the loophole for this behavior, which is the users may use some fake accounts or they may use their computers in cafes in order to avoid being traced by their IP address. So there are still rooms for improvement for the current legal rules. For the moral side, actually we think that currently people make comments or to post anything without bearing any responsibilities. As I mentioned just now, that people just use some fake accounts or just use computers outside their home. So whether a comment or a post is violating someone or not is totally determined by the administrator. That means it depends on his or her moral standard. So it is up to him or her to decide whether a person's account should be deleted or not.
So here comes our next question. Are the current forms inclusive? First, let me explain the definition of inclusive. According to the Oxford Dictionary, inclusive means including all the services or items normally expected or required. For the current form of public sphere on the internet, of course they are not inclusive. Why? Because it's so hard for something to include everything. So, another concept I want to mention is, inclusive is different from accessible. Clearly, not everyone has a sense of participation in the social media. For example, most people will have at least one social media account. However, they normally have very few followers, except some of their close friends. So this will lead to the consequence that most of their voice cannot be heard by the majority of online users. They can just share opinions with a small group of people. And also, somehow, whether your voices can be heard really depends on your popularity on the internet. And next, let me give out an interesting example about the language barrier. This is an example of Paul Zimmerman. Language can be a significant obstacle to inclusive. One example is the debating forum of CE candidates broadcast on 19th March night. One of the voters called Paul Zimmerman. He was picked to ask questions. However, he doesn't know any Cantonese, so the forum changed to English at that time. But soon, it changed back to Cantonese again. As you can imagine, how can he understand the debate if he doesn't understand the language? These things happen over and over again. Even with the help of translation, many people are still excluded from the whole process.
Now the question comes to, are the current forms informative? On the internet, we are exposed to a large amount of information, and actually we are running into a time of information explosion. But information explosion doesn't equal to informative. So here comes another question, what informative exactly means. According to Oxford Dictionary, informative means providing useful or interesting information. Useful information means the necessary information. They should be used in proper words. And for the interesting, it means information that can arouse the audience interest, and sometimes it is like a surprise. But sometimes it is not that informative. We may also use the propaganda model to find out the reasons. Firstly, advertising. Social media mainly depends on the advertising fund. The interests of the advertisers should be considered. Therefore, the news become a marginal role. And the crowdfunding can actually solve this kind of problem. And the second one is sourcing. No news agency is able to place journalists anywhere and anytime, even BBC or CNN. And the third one is flag establishment. The quality and justice of news will be affected by certain power, like Naila testimony. And the last one is ideology marginalization. The news tend to criticize some object ideology and thus find an echo with the public. So
I'm going to talk about whether the current forms encourage rational debates. The definition of rational debate is that the content of the debate is based on facts. The current forms cannot be regarded as encouraging rational debates, we think. The reasons are as follows. First, people do not need to provide proof before making comments that they can say whatever they want. And there are few or even no penalty for people who comment not based on facts, not to mention something malicious to other people. And the third reason is that people like to say something in their favor, especially political stances, and they will post something untrue to exaggerate the whole picture, to persuade other people to stand on the same side. And the fourth reason is that online users can register several accounts without providing proof, identity proof, to make several posts and comments by using different accounts. As we all know, three men make tiger. Some people may believe what those people post just because they saw other users agree with them. And the final reason is that it is not difficult to discover that there is the silent majority on the internet, that the opinion on the internet always stand on the same side.
And there is the question is that whether there should be some rules in the public sphere, and our whole group poses a very firm stance, which is a yes. For the first reason is that the rules can help regulate the internet users' behavior so as to protect the online users. And also, in reality, we got a basic law to protect everyone, so as the internet, there also should be some set of rules to protect all of the users as well. And for the solution, we propose a voting process, which is about the internet users are encouraged by the administrator to do the voting. So after all, the voting result should be put into the official legislation process. And according to Habermas, there are 5 fundamental rights for humans, including equality, freedom, political autonomy, healthy rights, and also interest. And we believe that based on all these rights, and people have the courage to take an active part in the politics. And here are details for the rule setting process. And actually, the reasons why we decided to set up the solution is because the administrator cannot fully represent all the internet users, as I mentioned, and whether a person's post or comment should be considered violating the rule should be decided by a code of regulations, but not a single person. And also, the rules should be proposed or voted by every internet users because in the future they will have no excuses to violate those rules because they are voted by them. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you.